Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel and thanks for tuning in. Just out here for another late night video. Been a really busy week around here. Just about 11:30 at night finally getting the video done for tomorrow. You'll see it tomorrow, but it's actually tonight when I'm doing it. And today I got a real good one. I'm going to give you guys a complete breakdown, give you my opinion on basically why A-rigs, Alabama rigs, just don't work hardly at all in the summertime of year. I think it'll be a good conversation. And real quick, before we just get started, just want to remind you guys, if you hadn't had a chance, please subscribe to the channel. We got a really nice giveaway next week, probably when we hit 40,000 subscribers. We got cases of Bridgeford beef jerky, Silverback sunglasses, big spools of Seaguar line. All you have to do is be subscribed to the channel to have a chance to win that. And that'd be much appreciated, because right now, half you dudes that are watching my videos are not subscribed to the channel. So, man, just show me and my family some love and hit that subscribe button. Be much appreciated. Okay, let's talk a little bit about this A-rig deal. And, I don't know if anyone's ever done a video on this. I was thinking about that, and I don't think anyone has ever really talked about it much. And for the most part, Alabama rigs just are not a factor in the summer. I mean, once in a while you'll hear some people catching on them, very rarely. But for the most part, Alabama rigs are pretty much relegated to the colder weather months. And I want to explain a little bit why that is and why, in my opinion, they don't work in the summertime of the year. First of all, I look at baits as far as categories of lures. I mean, I try not to isolate like one particular lure. I look for baits to be identified in their, basically just the characteristics that they appeal to for a certain bass personality or bass, movement or attitude that they have. Because depending upon the water temperatures and the water clarity and the water levels in the lake, bass have different temperaments. They have different moods. They have different things that generate strikes, and they're positioned differently, and they're located in different parts of the water column, and they feed differently. So one of the big reasons that an Alabama rig works so well is once you start having bass that begin suspending, and usually this begins sometime in the fall time of the year. The bass, when that water temperature starts to drop a little bit, doesn't have to drop much, depending upon the lake that you're fishing, as far as the water clarity, current or lack of current, and bait fish, a lot of different factors. You'll have a segment of those bass begin to suspend. And a prime example of this was how Paul Elias basically made the Alabama rig famous at the, it was I think an FLW series tournament at Gunnersville. I was in that tournament that Paul blew the tournament away on an Alabama rig. Nobody had even heard of an Alabama rig hardly. I mean, the only people that have heard of an Alabama rig, they were called umbrella rigs back then, and they were for stripers out on the West Coast. But anyway, Paul won this tournament off of the Alabama rig, a homemade one, on bridge piers for suspended bass. And this was in October. So the water temperatures hadn't started cooling down tremendously, but still you had those bass. They started suspending a little bit, and they started suspending in schools. And so that starts taking place in most parts of the country around October, and it usually lasts up until right before the bass go on the beds. And for example, in my part of the country, you can catch them on Alabama rigs pretty consistently from about November till early April. There's a pretty big window of it, and that's because you have a lot of the bass on the lake that are suspended. They're using a lot of different water columns depending upon the water clarity and the water depth that you have in your lake, but there's always a percentage of those bass that are in little wolf packs, suspended, chasing shad out off the end of points, around boat docks, on straight banks, windy banks, whatever. That's why an Alabama works so good in cold water. Now, the reason it sucks in summertime of the year is because those fish aren't positioned to be caught on the Alabama rig. They're not setting up in the same depths and suspending like they do in the colder weather. For granted, I'll give you the one thing for granted is when you're talking about summertime bass fishing, everybody knows bass use points. They love to be on main lake points and secondary points in the summer. In a typical man-made lake, that's the number one structures to most consistently catch bass on. And you know that they're suspended out there because you can catch them on a little swim bait once in a while, and you can catch them, busting the surface out over 30 foot of water with the top water. So there's some fish suspended out there. So why don't they bite an Alabama rig? In my opinion, it's a combination of a couple different things. I don't feel that you have the wolf packs out there cruising suspended like you do in the cooler weather months. And also that particular profile of the Alabama rig, it just does not appeal to the warmer weather fish for some reason. The metabolism of the bass and the things that cause them to generate strikes, that bait just does not work very well on it. And it's really odd because I'll take, for example, fishing here in the Ozarks, like at Bull Shoals Lake, Lake of the Ozarks, Stockton Lake, Table Rock Lake. You can get out on those main lake points and you can throw like a little small swim bait, like a 2.5 inch swim bait out there, and you can catch a lot of bass on them, suspended out there. But you throw an Alabama rig out there and you'll never get a bite on it. I mean, they just will not bite it because, again, the personality of the fish, they're keyed in on those smaller bait, they're keyed in on isolated shad. They just do not want that particular Alabama rig. And it's sort of a mystery because you think that if those fish were out there, they would bite it real good, but it's sort of the same deal like with the jerk bait. There's something about the profile and the action and the depth that a jerk bait attains that they just don't bite it very good on those same places that they bite it good in the colder weather. I'll go back again to the cold weather. You can go out on about any man-made lake that has water visibility between 2 to 4 feet in the winter time of the year on main lake and secondary points and catch them on a jerk bait and an Alabama rig. Those are about the two best things, followed up thirdly by a swim bait. If you do if you run those same areas and those same techniques with a jerk bait or an Alabama rig in the summertime of the year, you probably are not going to get any bites. And it's sort of one of those mysteries of fishing because I think a lot of it is just that we don't really understand the things that cause bass to bite based upon different times of the year and different weather conditions. I mean, I think that's one of the big mysteries. I think we theorize what that's like. I think that we want to try to make an educated guess, and we want to try to define everything where it fits into a little book. It just doesn't work that way, guys, in bass fishing. But I can tell you right off the bat that Alabama rigs pretty much suck in the summertime. They just you can catch bass on anything. I mean bass is opportunistic, but I can promise you right now, if you go out to your favorite lake where the water visibility is 2 to 4 foot deep, and you get out on those traditional areas that bass normally bite an Alabama rig, like the points and the channel swings and that type of stuff, you probably won't get a bite all day long on it. But like I said, you can go back in that same area with a little swim bait or something a little different and possibly catch them. Same with a jerk bait. You're not going to catch them on that either. So that's to me sort of the reason they don't bite them. I just think a lot of it has to do with the personality of the bass, the mood that they're in, their metabolisms, the way they operate within certain water columns, even though they're suspended. And there's some parameters in bass fishing that just hold true year after year after year, and we don't really understand why that is, but it is true for sure. I think a lot of it also has to do with fishing pressure. I think that if you would have taken an Alabama rig, that if you'd have had it 50 years ago and thrown it in the summertime of year, I think there might be a different result. But now, again, our bass are so educated across the lakes, across the country. They're smart, they evolve fast, they don't make many mistakes over and over again. And I think that's one of the reasons too. But that's my opinion on it. I would be curious to hear your guys' opinion on it. And I know some of you guys are probably going to say, well, I catch them on Alabama rigs all summer long. And I'm sure that there's some situations that they would work. I'm sure you could probably throw one around a boat dock and catch a suspended bass on it. But I can promise you guys, if you want to come down here with me at Table Rock Lake, that is a great Alabama rig lake in the wintertime, and come out with me and throw it against fishing a drop shot or a Ned rig or a football head jig, you're probably going to do a lot of casting and not much catching on an Alabama rig in the summertime down here. So anyway, that's today's video again. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Much appreciated, and we'll be back soon with another one.